Hello and welcome to our sixth and final round of the Swiss stages of the Disney Lorcana into the Inklands Set Championship. My name is Ben. It is a pleasure to have your company wherever you are watching this. And if you've missed any of the rounds before this or would like to watch them all concurrently along with the top 8 cards, they are in a playlist linked at the top of the description as well as in the corner of your screen via the iCard. We've got something a little bit different for you in this sixth and final round. You'll notice the records of both of these players. Jack on the left side of your screen playing Amethyst Steel and David on the right with Emerald Steel. Both of these players are 4-1 on the day so far. So this game represents a win and in, which means if you're newer to card games, newer to the competitive card game circuit, a win and in means that if you win this game, you are in and have qualified into the top 8, into the final stages of the tournament. For the player who is defeated here, might not necessarily be over, but a win will guarantee your spot. As we're getting our game underway here, the first of this best of 3. And that one drop captain hook that David had put down on his first turn was quickly baboomed. And David will follow up on his second turn with a Mr. Smee. You'll notice the Champions playmat as well that David is sporting. And it is the mat that will be going to the winner of the event today. The second place player will walk home with the playmat as well, but just without the champion stamp on it. But some fantastic prizes up for grabs that both these players are looking to try and call their own. As David is going to start questing for 2 and will start setting up as well his discard strategy. Little indication there of the Emerald Steel list that David is playing. It's discard with the Flynn Rider and the Cursed Merfolk. As Jack, the Amethyst Steel player, will go Maleficent into Robin Hood. At the moment, there's 6 law represented on board for David. A little look into the hand. I see there's a Storm Rage on. There's also an enchanted Along Came Zeus as well, which is a gorgeous card to have the ability to play in this list as well. So Storm Rage is going to go into the Robin Hood. We'll draw David a card as well. Or ink for 1, and then he's thinking about playing a second Cursed Merfolk potentially here. There's also a Strength of a Raging Fire that's in David's hand that he was initially maybe considering. A quest for 6, go all the way up to 8-0. And pass the turn from there, so doesn't elect to play down the second Merfolk. Just happy with his board state as it is. I heard maybe earlier in that turn as well, David asking Jack how many cards that he's got in his hand, as he looks to get the discard engine going. Jack's turn though is going to exert all of his ink, play the Robin Hood, challenge into the Merfolk, force a discard. Let's say Sorcerer's Spellbook that's gone into the discard pile there. And this will be the perfect time for Ink and Zeus, I think, realistically here. We're going to go Merfolk into, potentially this is signalling Strength. And it will be Strength of a Raging Fire to deal with the Maleficent. And then quest for 2 up to 10 with the Flynn Rider, which is a smarter way to navigate the questing that turn as well, because even if Jack does want to challenge into that Flynn Rider and get the 2 law bonus that you do with Robin Hood as soon as you challenge into a character and banish it. Jack would be forced to discard a card. As we're going to pay 4 for a Queen's Castle. A location we've seen plenty of throughout the day's play. And now we are going to challenge into the Flynn Rider with Robin Hood after it gets moved to Queen's Castle. Discard a Pinocchio for the cost. And the turn is sent straight back over as we pay 4. There is the Zeus. Doesn't draw a card there, rightfully hinted and pointed out there. It has to be banished in a challenge in order to get the card draw effect to go.
My Flynn's not going to get there against the castle,
so he's just going to quest up to 14 now as well. And in fact, he's going to decide to continue the race, quest for 2 more as well for the Smee. That will end up going into the discard as well. And Jack going to play 5, but I think he realises that it's just going to be past the turn, quest 4. And David, pretty convincingly, gets game 1 in this win and in matchup. Immediately able to get that discard engine working as well and start racing with those double law questers, the likes of Flynn Rider and the Cursed Merfolk as well. Obviously had that. Along came Zeus since the start of the game in the hand, ready to deal with the Robin Hood that got played down in response. David is 1 game away from putting himself into the top 8 of this Into the Inklands set championship. As both our players are conversing and talking about the game that they lost throughout this Swiss stage. And they draw their opening hand. Looks a little top heavy initially for David. I think I see double beast. There's a smash in there as well. Selected just to put 5 back straight away. And as for Jack, he's having a look at his opening hand.
You still want to cut? No. Good hand then.
And he's elected to keep his entire hand here. So interesting from Jack. Very, very happy with what he's found. He's found a 1-drop to start the game off with. It's a Captain Hook. Turn over with David. I think I see that there is a Cursed Merfolk in hand, so we do have a 1-drop. Instead, he's going to elect to go with a hook of his own. And maybe just prevent Jack from trying to get that early questing going. Obviously, they get the challenger on your turn, so Jack's hook would be the 1-3 as opposed to the 3-3. And it's just going to be an ink 1 and pass for now. David will ink a Smee, play a Smee, and pass the turn. So as things stand at the moment, of course, we've seen it throughout the day, that Mr. Smee will not take the damage when it gets exerted while that Captain Hook is out on the board. Not a bad little 1-2 combination to start this game off. So with Jack's turn 3, we're going to ink a smash away and play down a Madam Mim Fox to pass the turn back over. And that stat one will potentially give David a little bit of concern, being the 4-3, but there is a smash in hand for David, so there is an out to this Fox, and that's exactly what the line of play is going to be. And David will quest up to 3, get on the board first. At the moment, just dealing with the initial early game. There's 4 for Pan's Shadow.
Rush evasive and my other rush characters gain evasive.
And just hear the explanation from Jack there on the card that he's played. Rush character gets evasive as well, and will be able to easily challenge into that Captain Hook.
I'm going to kick Cloud Kicker.
And now David will respond for a Kit Cloud Kicker, bouncing away the Pan's Shadow. And then we'll pass the turn back over as well, not willing to play into that Shadow being replayed down by questing with Smee. So Jack instead will pay 4 and play down the Merlin Rabbit, draws a card, inks and passes the turn. Here is an 2-drop Ursula, finds 2 Baboon Rabbit Shadow. And we'll take the friends on the other side as well as the target on that card. So now David's starting to shift strategies a little bit, getting in towards the discard element of the deck, but just a little peek into David's hand as it is at the moment. Doesn't look like that there's many, if any, inkables, I don't think. There is a Cursed Merfolk, a Prince John, and I think the last card might be a Storm Ray John. So at the moment, David's stuck on 3 ink. He's up to 5 lore, but wonder how much longer that's going to be able to be withheld as the Smee hits the discard pile with a challenge. There goes Baboom as well. And then we'll play down another Merlin Rabbit to redraw a card just like that. Half of David's board has disappeared as David does find an inkable card in the form of Tinkerbell, but elects instead just to play down the Prince John. Pay your 1. And pass the turn straight back over. So Jack's still yet to get on the board in terms of the lore count, but David certainly isn't in the driver's seat, it feels like, here in this current game state. Draw a card from the Maleficent. Looks like he drew into a Queen's Castle there, did Jack. Will ink the second Baboom that David knew was in the hand from the search earlier from Ursula. And there indeed is that Queen's Castle, which marks a little bit of a fear and a little bit of a worry for David, actually, because there's not too many characters in David's deck that necessarily have the strength to be able to deal with that Queen's Castle. So at the moment, it's sticking around. We see David play down the 3-cost Ursula, so we'll be hoping to find Sudden Chill in order to get the double discard and the double draw effect as well off of the Prince John. And we'll continue to commit to going wide as well by playing down the Cursed Merfolk, down to just a 1-card hand at the moment for David. Not necessarily the position that the Emerald Steel discard deck typically wants to find itself in. As over with Jack's turn, is on the board now thanks to the passive lore gained by the Queen's Castle. Finds a long game Zeus as well to deal with the 3-drop Ursula. So that Sudden Chill discard that we were thinking about or considering, that's not going to happen right now. Then exert 4, Pan's Shadow. And just a check there, as it looked like Jack had just forgotten to note that the 2 lore that he passively gained, but of course it's an immediate and automatic effect. As soon as the turn gets passed over, you gain that 2 lore. It's not an effect that you can necessarily miss. Then paying is remaining 2 ink, it looks like, to move the characters into the castle. I think the Pan's Shadow's gone in there as well, it looks like. David just having a look around and thinking, admitting to himself and his opponent as well, I don't quite think I've necessarily got the strength on board to be able to deal with that castle, because now at the moment he's drawing a considerable amount of cards. Is Jack on his next turn. Looks like now's going to be the time for the Storm Rage on. Deals with the Maleficent. Draw a card, finds a hook, it looks like, from the top of the deck. Now, where does David go from here? Does he try and engage Jack in a race? Has fair few law that he was presenting on board, instead decides to go for a little bit of board preservation. Will take down the rabbit. Quest for 2 with the Cursed Merfolk up to 9. And then follows up with the Captain Hook as well. Over to Jack we go, who gained another 2 from that Queen's Castle. At the moment has remained untouched. Jack with a 3-card hand. It's a whole new world. Law Goat, and looks like the crab as well that's in Jack's hand. So looks like we're going to start off by paying 1 to move the Pan Shadow into the castle. What do we follow up with? Did we play down Goat, move that into castle, and quest for 2? I imagine that's probably what was going to be the passage of play here. Goat will be moved into the castle. It looks like Jack wants to commit a little heavier as well. Is going to play down the crab. Run the Peter Pan's Shadow into the Cursed Merfolk. Discards a whole new world. I mean, this is where David wants his opponents to be at. No cards in hand, but maybe not so much in terms of the board presence as well. David draws into Zeus. Jack just motioning that the crab isn't in the Queen's Castle. So at the moment, Jack will be drawing 3 cards at the start of his turn. Could go up to 13 if he quests out here. And nothing exerted on Jack's side of the board. There's no characters that David could potentially go after. He's going to Zeus into the castle, and then Hook is going to challenge into it. So that's been dealt with for now. No supplemental card draw for Jack on his next turn, and David's just going to pass.
Your board's better than mine. I think you're better.
And he knows that his other 2 characters don't necessarily have the strength to survive the challenges that could come in from Jack's side of the board on this turn. So David just deciding to try and slow things down a little bit.
Tap 4.
As Jack will tap 4 for Zeus. Deals with the Captain Hook and then quests out. Levels the game to 9 apiece.
9.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, 200. I don't know why they're you.
The turn will pass. Draws a, looks like a strength of a raging fire. But I'm not too sure if that's going to help too much in this situation. We'll replay down a second hook. I'm not really sure how David can actually break this board state that Jack has put up. It's just a little bit too tall at the moment. David looking like he's going to want to try and play down this strength of a raging fire. That will be the play. So this will be dealing 3 damage. It's going to be onto the shadow, which is perfectly enough. And then it looks like we're going to go questing now for David. Realises that he needs to start engaging in a little race. Finds a second Zeus off the top for Jack. Deals with the challenger. And now it is going to be a case of we're going to mop up the other characters on board and force David to have some considerable response. It's going to come to start with in the form of Beast. Top deck's a spellbook as well for Jack. This has been some seriously sizable draws over these past couple of turns for Jack. And then along came Zeus the turn before, spellbook there. Then we'll be over to David to respond, to use his smash to get rid of the goat. And then plays out the rest of his hand for an Ursula. Obviously no cards in hand to look at. David considering about whether he wanted to challenge into the Merlin Crab or quest up to 14. He decides to quest to 14, knowing that Jack can simply pay for spellbook to get the game back level. Pay 5, finds a Robin Hood. You might have heard the little groan there from David at the character being played down. 14 apiece will challenge into the Beast to stop that secondary draw from David to happen. It's Cloud Kicker, but is found for David, which isn't a bad find in terms of at least just pure board presence, but isn't going to be able to get a bounce effect happening. Quest to 17. And what can you find? Yet again off the top of your deck. It's going to be Friends on the other side. Beast will be challenged into. Will gain 2 lore from that card being banished as well by Robin Hood. David admitting he can't win next turn. If it was a 2 lore quester that instead of kick Cloud Kicker, then David would have been able to be okay. And pay 3 for a bodyguard. The Prince as well. Flips over a sudden chill. And we are going to a game 3 in this win and in on the final Swiss round. David just not able to find any of the discard options or capitalise really off the discard options is the biggest problem. As well as Jack's board state just being a little bit too tall as opposed to things that David can manage or discard away earlier as well. This is set up for a very interesting final game in this Swiss matchup here. Winner of this game will make their way into the top 8 and be 1 game away from their Enchanted Stitch promo as well. If you've been enjoying the game so far as well, if you've been enjoying the coverage from the Into the Inklands Set Championship, then we do encourage you, of course, to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well to keep up to date with all the coverage of these events that gets created. And of course, check out the official Fanboy 3 socials as well, because you never know, this could be you playing in these events, and the official Fanboy social accounts. So it's where you'll find out first when these events are announced as well. Our players take their mulligans, draw their hands, and are underway in the final game of this round. So familiar start from both players to the games as well. Captain hooks apiece, and then followed up with a Smee in David's turn 2. over to Jack, inking away the Merlin Crab, and we'll follow up with double Robin Hood, looking to go a little wider in this game 3. As David has double Ursula, a Flynn Rider. I think it's a Strength of a Raging Fire, I beg your pardon, in the middle of David's hand as well there. So there is some single target removal option. We're going to ink a Sudden Chill, play down the 3-cost Ursula. So that will be a way to sort of turn that single target removal of Strength of a Raging Fire into multiple targets, as you can sing it twice with the Ursula ability. But Jack has something a little bit taller in mind, a little bit stronger in mind, with a shift into the big Robin Hood, and then quest for 2 as well to get Jack on the board first. Draw for turn for David, and there's immediately that Strength of a Raging Fire that is brought to the front of David's hand. I imagine that it's going to be sent into Robin Hood here. Now pay 2 for Ursula. Reveal the hand. No songs, it looks like, to target there. But does get the information, of course. And it is going to be Sing Strength for damage. Doubled into that Robin Hood. We'll deal with it immediately. And then it should be a challenge into the little Robin Hood. And then the hooks will go and challenge each other as well. One with challenger, one without. And David has been able to clear the board entirely. Still hasn't inked for turn, and will play out his entire hand in an attempt to try and outrace Jack in this game. 5 characters on board for David. Jack has a little bit of work to try and do to clean this up. One of those will be in the form of a Peter Pan's Shadow, which will challenge into the hook. Only take the 1 damage back in return as well. I like David's side of the board here at the moment. Quests to 4 and passes the turn. Rightfully, the damage is pointed out, has to be added on to that Mr. Smee. And now Jack will look to try and play hook into Madam M. Fox, which gains rush. Will challenge into the Ursula. And then the Pan's Shadow is going to quest up to 2 as well. 4 apiece in this game 3 as things stand. Prince John on the play for David. Both of them have evasive as things stand at the moment, so they can't be challenged into. So David has no choice but to quest. I think the choice of questing there is correct as well. Wants to keep that second Mr. Smee around as long as possible in order to try and get that potentially as sort of the card that finishes the game, or force some removal interaction with it as well. Jack with just a couple cards in hand, it looks like here. David representing a doubling of law on board at the moment. Looks like that is a Robin Hood that was found. There is that Zeus that we said was needed to be found, that single target removal. And then the second challenge into the Mr. Smee as well. Inking Benja plays down a beast. And Ursula will quest now as well. Jack finds the Ursula's castle, the Queen's castle as well. to continue to put the pressure back onto David to find the answers. We'll put, looks like the Pan's Shadow into the castle. Quests with both characters to tie the game. And if David can't find a response or can't challenge into that castle, then it will be up to 10, potentially 14 if Jack quests with his characters in the next turn as well. David has to try and stay a little calmer. Finds Smee and Strength of a Raging Fire off the 2 draws from the Beast. We are going to play Strength of the Raging Fire and deal with that Pan's Shadow. Doesn't want to keep that evasiveness granter around. And David will elect to quest with everything that he has got. 13 available. So that does threaten game next turn. So Jack will have to interact in some capacity here. He's going to be able to, of course, with that Robin Hood. It's probably got to be the Prince John, I think, that you've got to deal with here at the first instance. Not quite sure what Jack has in hand. It's the goat that is in hand, so he will play that down. Up to 11 he'll go. Pay 1 to put it into the castle, and then he has to challenge. It does go into the Prince John, as we rightly predicted, and Jack will actually gain the 2 lore as well off of that. But that Beast still left undamaged will net David an extra card off of this draw. Is that thing another Strength of a Raging Fire and a second Ursula, I think, that he's found. So Ursula and then Strength will go into the goat. Down to up to 14. Jack will go, which will be 16 on his turn as well, thanks to Castle. But with 18 lore on board for David, draw is a second Robin Hood. I don't think it's going to be enough. Jack is just going to be 2 lore short. Robin Hood can challenge into something, gain 2 lore and tie it up to 18, but there's just too much that David has managed to amass. A perfectly timed Strength of a Raging Fire as well. And I think that was played perfectly from David. Jack plays down the Robin Hood in vain. Will challenge into something, but
should have been putting him in castle.
That will be it. It looks like David, as the calculations are put up, Robin Hood will challenge into the Smee. Jack goes up to 18, and it's past the turn. Quest with the Beast. David goes to 20 and goes into the top 8 of the Into the Inklands Set Championship. Commiserations to Jack. He played valiantly, but David just finding the right cards at the right time and strategically playing them as well. That's going to do it for us here from this Swiss rounds. We will see you hopefully in the top 8, but if not, we'll see you in the next video.